I fell asleep on the couch. I'm sorry I'm late. Anyway, we are reading Alice's Wonderland, and we're going to pick up where we left off the other day. All right, let's get started. I hope you're having a lovely Friday. She waited for some time without hearing anything more. At last came a rumbling of little cartwheels and the sounds of a good many voices talking together. She made out the words, "Where's the ladder? Why, I hadn't bring it about. Bill's got one other. Bill, fetch it here, lad. Here, put 'em up at this corner. No, tie 'em together first. They don't reach half high enough yet. Oh, they'll do enough. Don't be particular here. Bill, catch the old and hold of the rope. Will the roof bear? Mind that loose slate. Oh, it's coming down. Heads below. Now, who did that? It was Bill, I fancy. Who's to go down the chimney? Nay, I shan't. You do it. That I won't. Then Bill's got to go down here. Bill, the master says you've got to go down the chimney. Oh, so Bill's got to come down the chimney, has he? Said Alice to herself. Why, they seem to put everything upon Bill. I wouldn't be in Bill's place for a good deal. The fireplace is narrow. To be sure, I think I can kick a little. She drew her foot as far down as the chimney as she could and waited till she heard a little animal. She couldn't guess of what sort it was, scratching and scrambling about in the chimney close above her. Then she sang to herself, "This is Bill." She gave a sharp kick and waited to see what would happen next. The first thing she heard was a general chorus of, "There goes Bill." Then the rabbit's voice alone, "Catch him, you by the edge." Aw, thanks for the like and stopping by. I hope you're having a lovely evening. Silence, and then confusion of voices. Hold up his head. Brandy now. Don't choke him. How was it, old fellow? What happened to you? Tell us about it. At last, a little feeble squeaking voice. That's Bill, thought Alice. Well, I hardly know more than I better now, but I'm a deal too flustered to tell you. All I know is something comes at me like in a jack-in-the-box, and up I goes like a skyrocket. So you did, old fellow, said the others. We must burn down this house, said the rabbit's voice, and Alice's called out as loud as she could. If you do, I'll set Dinah on you. There was a deal of silence. Alice thought to herself, I wonder what they'll do next. And if they had any sense at all, they'd take the roof off. After a minute or two, they had begun moving about again, and Alice heard the rabbit say, a barrowful will do to begin with. A barrowful of what? Thought Alice. But she had not long to doubt, for the next moment a little shower of pebbles came rattling in at the window, and some of them hit her in the face. I'll put a stop to this, she said to herself at first, and then shouted out, you better not do that again, which produced another dead silence. Alice noticed with some surprise that the pebbles were all turning into little cakes. As they lay on the floor, a bright idea came into her head. If I eat one of those cakes, she thought, it's sure to do something to change my size, as it can possibly make me larger. It must make me smaller, I suppose. So she swallowed one of the cakes and was delighted to find out she began shrinking directly. As soon as she was small enough to get through the door, she ran out of the house and found a quiet little crowd of animals, birds, watching outside and waiting. The poor little lizard Bill was in the middle, being held up by two guinea pigs. They were giving it something out of a bottle. They made a rash at Alice, and at a moment she appeared, but she ran off as hard as she could, and soon found herself in the thick wood. "And the first thing I've got to do," said Alice to herself as she wandered about in the wool, "is to grow to my right size again. And the second thing to do is to find my way into that lovely garden. I think that will be the best plan." It sounded as excellent plan, no doubt, very neatly and simply arranged. The only difficulty that she had was not the smallest idea of how to go about it. And while she sat peering about it anxiously among the trees, a little sharp bark just overheard her make it look up a great hurry. "Aw, thanks for being here. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm trying Insider Life, thank you." An enormous puppy was looking down at her with the large round eyes and feebly stretching out one paw, trying to touch her. "Poor little thing," said Alice, coaxing in a tone, and she tried hard to whistle at it, but was terribly frightened. All the time she thought that it might be hungry, and at which case it would be very likely to eat her up in one spite of all of her coaxing. Hardly knowing what she did, she picked up a little bit of a stick and held it out to the puppy, whereupon the puppy jumped into the air and fell to its feet at once. With a yelp, delight, and rushed at the stick and made a believe to worry about it. Then Alice dodged behind a great thistle to keep herself from being run over, and the moment she appeared on the other side, the puppy made another rush at the stick and tumbled head over heels in a hurry to get a hold of it. And then Alice was very like having a game of play with a cart horse, and accepting every moment to trample to her feet, ran around the thistle again, and then the puppy began a series of short charges at the stick, running a very little way forwards and then back again, a long way, barking out hoarsely a while, till at last, a good way off, panting with its tongue hanging out of its mouth and its great eyes shut. This seemed to Alice a good opportunity for making her escape, so she set off at once and ran till she was quite tired and out of breath, and the puppy barked sounded quite faint in the distance. "Aw, thank you so much, Dirk. That's so sweet of you. Taking downers or just having a really soft voice?" I was asleep on my couch. I'll go with that. And then I woke up. No, I'm just playing. But no, seriously, I was asleep. And I guess I have a soft voice. And I'll say thank you for that. Ben Butterstick. That's kind of a cool name. Thank you guys for being here. And yet, what a dear little puppy it was as Alice leant against the buttercup. Oh, hey. To rest herself and fanned herself with one of the leaves. I should have liked teaching its tricks very much if I only had the right size to do it. Oh dear, I'd nearly forgotten that I've got to grow up again. Let me see how it is to be managed. I suppose I ought to eat or drink something other, but the great question is what? The great question certainly was what. Alice looked all around her at the flowers and the blades of grass, but she could not see anything that she looked right thing to eat or drink under the circumstances. There was a large mushroom growing near her, about the same height as her, and when she looked under it and both sides of it and behind it, it occurred to her that she might as well look and see what was on top of it. She stretched up on her tiptoe and peeped over the edge of the mushroom, and her eyes immediately met those large blue caterpillar that was sitting on top, folding its arms, quietly smoking a long hookah and taking the smallest notice of her at anything else. The caterpillar and Alice looked at each other for some time in silence. At last, the caterpillar took the hookah out of its mouth and addressed her in a languid, sleepy voice. "Who are you?" said the caterpillar. "This is not an encouraging opening for a conversation," replied Alice rather shyly. I hardly know, sir. Just at present, at least. I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have changed several times since then." "What do you mean by that?" said the caterpillar sternly. "Explain yourself." "I can't explain myself, I'm afraid, sir," said Alice, "because I'm not myself, you see." "I don't see," said the caterpillar. "I'm afraid I can't put it more clearly," replied Alice politely, "for I can't understand it myself to begin with, and being so many different sizes in one day is very confusing." "It isn't," said the caterpillar. "Well, perhaps you haven't found it so yet," said Alice. "But when you have to turn into a chrysalis, you will someday, know, and then after that into a butterfly. I should think you will feel quite a little different, won't you?" "Not a bit," said the caterpillar. "Well, perhaps your feelings may be different," said Alice. "All I know is it would feel very different to me." "You," said the caterpillar contemptuously. "Who are you?" Which brought them back again to the beginning of the conversation. Alice felt a little irritated at the caterpillars making such a very short remark. She drew herself up and said, very gravely, "I think you ought to tell me who you are first." Why? Said the caterpillar. Here are another puzzling question. And as Alice could not think of any good reason, as the caterpillar seemed to be in a very unpleasant state of mind, she turned away. Come back, said the caterpillar as he called after her. I've something important to say. This sounded promising, certainly. Alice turned and came back again. Keep your temper, said the caterpillar. Is that all? Said Alice, swallowing down her anger as well as she could. No, said the caterpillar. Alice thought she might as well wait, as she had nothing else better to do, and perhaps after all it might tell her something worth hearing. For some minutes it puffed away without speaking, but at least its unfolded arms took the hookah out of its mouth again and said, So, you think you've changed, do you? I'm afraid I am, sir, said Alice. I can't remember things as I used to, and I don't keep the same size for 10 minutes altogether. Can't remember what things, said the caterpillar. Well, I've tried to say, how doth go the busy bee, but it seemed to come out all different. Alice replied in a very melancholy voice. Repeat. You are old, Father William, said the caterpillar. Alice folded her hands and began. You are old, Father William, the young man, and your hair has become very white, and yet you insistently stand on your head. Do you think, at your age, it is right? In my mouth, in my youth, Father William replied to his son, I feared it might injure the brain, but now I'm perfectly sure I have none. Why, I do it again and again. You are old, said the youth, as I mentioned before, and have grown most uncommonly fat. Yet you've turned back somersault in the door. Pray, what it is in the reason of that? In my youth, said the sage, as he shook his gray locks, I kept my all limbs very supple, but the use of this ointment, one shyly the box, allow me to sell you a couple. You are old, said the youth, and your jaws are too weak, and for any tougher that's wet. You finish the goose with the bones and the break. Pay and pray for how managed to do it. In my youth, said his father, I took to the law and arrayed each case with my wife, and the muscular strength which it gave me to my jaw, it lasted for the rest of my life. You are old, said the youth, and you'll hardly suppose that your eye was steady as ever, yet you've balanced an eel on the end of your nose. What made you so awfully and clever? I've answered 3 questions, and now that's enough, said his father. You don't give yourself airs. Do you think I can listen all day to such stuff? Be off, or I'll kick you downstairs. This is not right, said the caterpillar. Not quite right, I'm afraid, said Alice timidly. Some of the words I've gotten altered. It's wrong from the beginning to the end. And the caterpillar decidedly, and there was silence for some minutes. The caterpillar was first to speak. What size do you want to be? It asked. Oh, I am not particular as to a size, Alice hastily replied. Only one doesn't like changing so often, you know. I don't know, said the caterpillar. Alice said nothing. She had never been so contradicted in all of her life, and she felt that she was losing her temper. Well, I should be like a little larger, sir, if you don't mind, said Alice. 3 inches is such a wretched height to be. It is a very good height indeed, said the caterpillar angrily, rearing itself upright as it spoke. It was exactly 3 inches high. But I am not used to it, pleaded Alice with a piteous tone, and she thought to herself, I wish the creatures would be not so easily offended. You'll get used to it in time, said the caterpillar, and it put the hookah into its mouth and began to smoke again. This time, Alice waited patiently until it chose to speak again. In a minute or two, the caterpillar took off the hookah out of its mouth and yawned once or twice, and it shook itself. And then it got down off the mushroom and crawled away into the grass, merely remarking as it went on, one side will make you grow taller, and the other side will make you grow shorter. One side of what? Asked Alice, as she thought to herself. Of the mushroom, said the caterpillar, as if she had asked it aloud. In another moment, it was out of sight. Alice remained looking thoughtfully at the mushroom for a minute, trying to make out where the 2 sides of it were, perfectly round for this very difficult question. However, at last, she stretched up her arms and round it as they would barely go and broke off a bit. And now, which is which? All right, you guys, we're going to pause right there, and we will pick up again tomorrow night, and I'll be on time, I promise. I love you all very, very much. Oh, too close. I hope you have wonderful, sweet dreams. Keep it crispy. Oh, hi, kittens. It's nice to finally meet you. You guys, if you want to watch a beautiful vlog, Kittens Travel Road and Food Trip. She has beautiful filming of Japan and all kinds of different places. Go check her out. Till tomorrow night, you guys. Keep it crispy. I love you.